original prompt, go ahead and write in the chat your name, your affiliation, if you've got one, and your favorite drink, your favorite warm drink in the morning. Caramel macchiato, Nicole. Very fancy. I love a good smoothie. All right, Dana, should we get started? It's
Sure.
at 35.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Emily's going to be providing the presentation. It's brief and beautiful, but it gives you a lot of information about what we've learned from homeowners in our most recent survey. I myself have not had a chance to caffeinate yet, so pardon me, but I'm going to read a little bit here just to make sure I hit all the points that I wanted to hit. I just want to give you a quick overview for those of you who are not familiar with the Urban Conservancy, and FYI, just a quick little summary about that. Since 2001, the Urban Conservancy has collaborated on and led initiatives to strengthen the urban environment and local economy through equitable practices, policies, and programs. We have some longtime supporters on here, and we appreciate that as well. We promote sustainable solutions to New Orleans' distinct land use needs through community, K-12, and neighborhood level engagement. And the Front Yard Initiative has been around since about 2015, started thinking in 2014 and really rolled it out in 2015. And it has worked with homeowners to remove paving to reduce flooding. We've provided financial assistance to more than 150 property owners to date, technical assistance to thousands more. And to date, we've helped homeowners remove over 93,000 square feet of paving, resulting in nearly 4 million gallons diverted from our pumping system annually, resulting in over $1.1 million in direct economic stimulus to the green sector. And that's very conservative estimate of actually direct for labor and materials type expenses into the green sector for the goods and services procured. And none of this is, we don't do any of this on our own. We have had financial support over the years from a number of local foundations, a few national foundations, and individual donors as well. And some of those donors have included the Greater New Orleans Foundation, Intergy Environmental Initiatives Fund. This is where the caffeine would come in really handy. Wisner Donor Fund, the Albert and Elaine Borchardt Foundation, Southeastern Sustainable Communities Fund, the LOS Freeman Foundation, Harris, it goes on and on, but we appreciate our sponsors and want to make sure that they understand that they are an integral part of this work as well. With that, I'm going to say, we are recording this. We will make this available afterwards. If anyone has questions, we've left plenty of time for a Q&A after the fact. If you have questions that you want to make sure get addressed, feel free to put them in the chat, but Emily will open it up after her brief presentation for Q&A. I'd also like to just note that we're really appreciative to see so many contractors and other folks working in this space on the call. So definitely it's not just us that can be answering any questions that come up. Okay, I'll go over to you, Emily.
Not to volunteer the contractors, but
yeah.
But there's a lot that y'all know way more about than we do. All right, so good morning, everybody. I am gonna share my my screen real quick. Just want to make sure. All right, and of course I start from the end. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming out first thing in the morning for most of us, and to this discussion of the 2023 Front Yard Initiative Homeowner Survey results. We administered our survey in the summer of 2023 to every past Front Yard Initiative participant with a completed project that was over 6 months old. So what that means is from the start of the pilot program in 2015 all the way up to December of 2022. And we felt it was important to focus on established projects because they show us how this work functions over time. As plants grow and establish, as conditions change, how do things look on the ground? So today we're going to discuss just some of our key findings. The entire report is open and available on our website as well. And again, we're going to send this recording out. Just as a quick brief, the Front Yard Initiative came out of discussions after Hurricane Katrina about how to de-incentivize paving and incentivize the removal of old paving in favor of green stormwater infrastructure, infrastructure that allows water to seep into the ground exactly where it falls instead of run off into our overburdened pumping system. And it became clear that rather than punishing people for overpaving, it was a better model to help people who knew they had too much paving, who hated their paving and didn't know how to go about taking it out. So from there came this incentive program where we reimburse homeowners for removing pavement, but also provide them with tons of technical support, skills, knowledge, and access to the people who can help them. So our methodology in this report was to survey all 122 of the folks with projects 6 months old or older. Of those 122, we received 102 responses, which is an 86% response rate. So we're very happy with that. And we hope that it says good things about how people reflect on the program once they've participated. Let's start with demographics. You'll notice that these graphs both refer to both our 2020 survey, which surveyed obviously fewer people, and our 2023 survey, because what's really important about these is to compare. In 2020, what became clear was that there was an enormous lack of equity and of equitable access to green infrastructure across racial and to somewhat age lines as well, and that it was incumbent upon us to do something about that. So as you can see, we've made some small gains since then by directly and fully funding projects for homeowners who are low to middle income, on a fixed income, have mobility issues, have been in their homes for many years in some of the city's most flood-prone neighborhoods, and who are majority Black and in our older age categories. And because of this, our participation by Black homeowners has increased 75% since then. For simplicity's sake, internally, we call this program FYI Direct. So thanks in large part to this program, again, 75% increase in participation of Black homeowners and a large increase as well in the share of our older age categories, our 61 plus age category. And we're proud to be doing a better job of reaching those who are less likely to be able to afford residential green infrastructure on their own, but clearly, we have a long way to go. And so that is going to be one of our focuses. But this program has turned out to be really mutually beneficial because direct participants have shown their enthusiasm for the program by regularly speaking on our behalf, including in media outlets, by recommending us to friends and family. We've worked with so many FYI Direct participants who said, oh yeah, I learned about this program from, and they name a previous participant. They contact us for unrelated resources. They help us on unrelated projects. They join our committees and even our board of directors. So this has reinforced the lesson that green infrastructure, while priced for homeowners, is a crucial and desired resource for our most flood-prone lower income communities, and is a necessary factor in allowing our senior citizens to age in place. Our challenge for 2024 is to continue to do the most good with fewer dollars that don't stretch as far as they used to, due to increased material and labor costs, which we'll cover a little bit more later. We'll do this by continuing to collaborate with partners to pair homeowners with essential resources other than green infrastructure, such as weatherization and home repairs, thereby going deeper with each new participant rather than trying to find as many participants as possible. We've been able to do this 3 times now with Groundwork New Orleans, with the LA Green Corps, and with Rebuilding Together New Orleans. And this has the added benefit of supporting apprenticeship and job training programs that support the next generation of professionals. So we'll also be deliberate in our choice of project and focus on the work of storytelling to make sure that each single small success adds to a louder voice demanding larger scale change. Next, we focused on the multiple benefits of stormwater infrastructure and of the levels of engagement that come after. Obviously, we have to start with talking about flooding, and we are very happy to report that all participants reported a significant or complete reduction of localized flooding on their properties that only increases with time as plants grow and establish. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the most mild flooding or no flooding, and 5 being the most severe flooding, 90% of participants rated their flooding as a 4 or a 5 before green infrastructure, and 10% as a 1. And then after participating in FYI and having that green infrastructure installed, those numbers flip. We also asked participants to tell us how else their lives have changed since participating in FYI. We ask these questions because we're not just interested in changing a few yards, which is what we can do with our capacity. We're trying to change our culture around stormwater management, native habitat, and climate resilience. And that means that each front yard has to change lives and it has to change conversations. So the biggest benefits that our respondents reported were less localized flooding, obviously, but also more time spent outside and increased pollinators and other wildlife in their yards. Anecdotally, our participants tell us that their yards are immediately cooler in temperature upon removal of pavement. New entertainment areas exist where none did before, so that they can invite their friends to spend time outside. And that their FYI sign sparks conversations with passersby even years after installation. They also report participation in other community groups like the Native Plants Initiative, Soul, the NOLA Tree Project, and gardening groups. And we hope that this indicates that we're inspiring people to become more active participants in bringing nature back into our community, and also aiding in the missions of our fellow nonprofits, which help us so much as well. It's interesting to note that membership before FYI focuses much more on volunteer-oriented work. People pre-FYI are much more likely to do things where they can just go out and help for a day, plant trees, clean out catch basins, and membership afterwards spikes in groups that are about having a higher level of knowledge. So a master naturalist, master gardener, Native Plants Initiative. And we can infer from this that FYI inspires participants to learn more, which leads them to have a higher level of interest in these mastery programs. So moving into a new year, this informs how we communicate with decision makers, potential partners and funders, and with the general public. During the extreme drought and heat wave this summer, we received very few FYI applications. And that means that we need to start emphasizing in our communication the multiple benefits of green infrastructure outside of just flood reduction. So that is heat reduction, improved air quality, habitat creation, and community building. Because we don't know really from a day-to-day level what the future brings us in terms of weather, but we do know that green infrastructure can cover a lot of bases, and we need to be communicating that. We also asked folks what else they would like to see from us. What else can we do to help? And respondents indicated that they want more educational opportunities and more visibility from us in terms of advocacy for this issue. So on that note, we've recently established a committee to create native plant ID signs, so little signs that identify your plants that you can put in your native garden, as well as a larger sign that talks about what is a rain garden, why are native plants important, to continue to just educate passersby. And we're looking into ideas like new literature or a class cycle workshops where we would have experts come and talk about interesting and topics. Other ideas are welcome. If you've got an idea for what you would like to see in terms of more education for the public, please let us know. Same goes for advocacy. We're considering ways to sort of help individuals sometimes in sticky situations while pushing the public conversation about green stormwater infrastructure. Level sip tea. And that brings us to talking about kind of a less conspicuous, but absolutely essential part of the green stormwater infrastructure conversation, and that is the people who install it. We asked respondents about their awareness of what we call the green sector. That is businesses whose work is the promotion and installation of nature-based solutions, as well as other environmental goals. The contractors that we work with and that our participants hire are all small local businesses, the majority of which are either BIPOC and or woman owned. And this summer, we watched them suffer through the drought as people forgot about stormwater. And you know, as they were not applying to the program, it means they were also not hiring contractors to do this work. If these businesses close their doors, we won't have anyone to take us into the future of nature-based solutions that we all agree we so sorely need. So finding ways to support them in hard times is a huge focus of ours in 2024, as it has been in the past. We know that we are well positioned to do this because 83% of our respondents reported that participating in the Front Yard Initiative increased their awareness of the green sector, and nearly 100% said that it was very important. I think we're missing that graph, but you'll just have to trust me. Most have found a way to recommend their contractor, majority by word of mouth. But we have no way of knowing if that translates to more business for any individual contractor. So this is something that we can look at in 2024 as well, encouraging participants to actively talk about, you know, shout out their contractor. Green infrastructure is expensive, and nearly 100% of our homeowners agreed that financing programs like the Front Yard Initiative are essential to support new green infrastructure installations. We frequently get testimonials like this one from our survey, which reads, "Thank you so much. We would never have spent the money on our project if we hadn't received the scholarship from FYI. It was incredibly helpful to us to be able to accomplish our project." Now, that was from a traditional participant who hired their contractor the way that you would hire a contractor, and then we reimburse them $2.50 per square foot after the fact. So this is somebody who was able to afford to front the money to install exactly what they wanted on their property. And yet, knowing that they were going to get that small reimbursement on the backside, that reimbursement covers often 10% of a project, was so helpful for getting their foot in the door to actually do the work. That we know, you know, how worthwhile that incentive is. Our contractors need and deserve to charge fair market prices, even as those prices rise with the inflation we've been seeing. And we can't allow that to slow the speed at which we implement nature-based solutions. So that highlights, once again, the need for further and better funding for homeowners at almost every income level. FYI Direct, where we are the ones who hire the contractors to help lower income folks create their installations. That really helps because it's a way to pair people who need the work and people who need work to do in times of trouble, so that we can just keep the momentum community that we need. So that has been that's been helpful for us, and we would love to be able to fund more of those projects in the future. So in 2024, we're working with several partners on large workforce development grants to bolster green infrastructure, both by creating more qualified candidates for existing jobs and to build the capacity of the industry. These grants, if we receive them, would also help to spread awareness and availability of green infrastructure. In general, we're going to continue to work funding projects and advocating for the green sector. We also are happy to be able to continue helping and lending a hand, lending a little bit of advice and connecting points to more public projects like a new Hopeful Park on Simon Bolivar Avenue, as well as the administrative buildings of the United Homination and St. John the Baptist Parish as they create a similar program in their community. We love to help out. We love to connect folks to each other who are doing all this great and very important work. So that's something that we're really going to focus on this year as well. And with that, those are just, again, the brief highlights of our report. The entire report is available on our website under the FYI tab. And we are happy to stay on and answer questions and have conversation. But again, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And we've got some time to chat. Keith. Yes.
Yeah, firstly, massive congratulations on what you've achieved. It's absolutely outstanding. Of the 4 million gallons that you've removed or attenuated from the system, has any work been done to realize or understand the cost saving from that, from the city's pumping carbon footprint or power costs, etc., to kind of realize some benefit, to demonstrate that it's not just kind of the fringe qualitative benefits, it's actually got physical quantitative benefits as well?
Hey, Keith, I can partially answer that. I see Grace Vogel from the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans, your counterpart here in New Orleans, is on the call. And she may have some information about what they're doing. So basically short answer is yes, but we haven't been doing that quantitative work. But also one of our partners that I've mentioned to you, I think, in this work, Andreas Hoffman with Greenlight New Orleans with the water barrel program. He has also been working on a methodology to quantify some of that too. So we can probably together figure out provide you with some information as to where we are right now. But Grace, don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you know of anything that's happening currently?
I don't know of any cost benefit ratio that SIMNO is doing, because I mean we wouldn't have the numbers that you just talked about, so I don't know how they would calculate that. Sorry, I have a baby in the background. But you know, they're always doing something at admin level that I'm not aware of either, so it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Khalida.
Hi, good morning. I am glad to hear about this. I work in the city of New Orleans with the Office of Human Rights and Equity, and so Grace, would love to meet you at some point. And so I've been in this position for a couple months now, and one of my colleagues sent me this, and so I'm glad she did. Congrats. When we're talking about equity things and what community members are doing, I'm looking at different ways of how we quantify that and disaggregate that based on our neighborhoods. And so I'm wondering if you all have or plan to disaggregate any of the impact results based on the neighborhoods that have been impacted. So specifically looking at like the demographics of each neighborhood and, you know, wherever you all saw the benefit or the impact happening, having data on that. And so that's like one question. And then I have another question, but should I pause?
That's fine. No, that's a fascinating point, and I would love to do that.
I can
FYI Direct.
also-
Huh?
just,
Go ahead, Dan.
sorry, just as an overview, we are there is some effort definitely in trying to pair that stuff up with Groundwork New Orleans and Groundwork USA, and also Tara Tolford's the Office of what's the name of Tara's register for this, but she isn't on this. There is some general work in the aggregation of data realm that we're just starting to do. Involves like the trusting of the data sharing of multiple organizations to get like a good picture. But then Emily has something to say about what we're doing internally as well.
So the FYI Direct program is fairly small because of the just amount of funding that it takes to do one project, as opposed to what it takes to do, several traditional projects. So it would really be interesting to track that in the future. I know all of our participants have seen huge reductions in flooding on their own properties. At the neighborhood level, I think it's still in its nascent stage. We do have a map that tracks all of our projects visually, so you can really see exactly where they are in the city. And I mean, I think in the future, maybe looking by zip code, by neighborhood, would be a really fascinating thing to do. I would imagine that we could do that in terms of numbers of gallons of water stored, number of households reached, a bunch of different metrics. Chris.
Hey, good morning. Can you guys hear me okay, or is it?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, perfect. Sometimes my headphones go in and out. So, no, this is a great presentation. I was really interested in that slide that showed sort of before and after and sort of the flooding and flooding afterwards. And I was curious, kind of off of Kalita's question about the neighborhood impacts, is it possible to survey some of the neighbors that are around those lots to see if there's around those properties to see sort of the neighborhood benefits, or the localized but beyond just the local house that got the implementation, if folks who didn't even sign up for this didn't really receive anything besides maybe more pollinators and stuff, but if they were also experiencing flood reduction like just next door, that would be a cool kind of cool info to learn about, like if one of these is installed on a block, like this is what you can expect if you're within 3 houses. And then the other question was just for like future signups. I kind of missed the last like 3 minutes. I wasn't sure how it ended just because I was kind of moving in and out, but like will this be funded in the future? And in terms of the equity component, what are the I guess like for people to sign up, if it is going to be funded, is it like you have to be in this particular neighborhood, you have to fit LMI status, or can people just kind of volunteer to receive this?
So I'll address both those questions, and then Kalita, I'm so sorry, you had said you had another question. I'll come back to that after. So it's great that you mentioned talking to neighbors about the potential impact on them from somebody participating on their block. Because when I mentioned that we're looking into creating new literature this year, that is something that one of our participants like directly talked about, was communicating with their neighbors. Especially because we live in a climate where people are often suspicious of plants and things like that. So that's one of the things that we're looking into is how to have those conversations with neighbors. And that might be us surveying neighbors, that might be us kind of arming our participants to do it. We'll see what works. And then in terms of eligibility and continuing to funding, we are, we're a nonprofit. We do the grant writing thing. As Dana listed before, our funding comes mainly from philanthropic organizations. And so we fund the number of projects that we can, and that changes year to year. And And then in terms of eligibility for the program, we don't actually ask anyone for their financial information. What we do is we develop relationships. So just about every one of our participants in that program, either we had known them before or they came sort of through the network. And then we talked to them about their needs, about their flooding issues. We focus on 3 specific neighborhoods, the Hoffman Triangle in Central City, the Lower Ninth Ward, and New Orleans East, which is kind of a large neighborhood. But those are some of our most flood-prone neighborhoods where we know that a lot of folks who live there don't have the funds for green infrastructure. And that's the way that it's kind of been structured so far. It's coming, I think, out of its pilot phase and hopefully finding some like really strong legs in the next few years, given, funding restrictions. So we'll see what happens. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. I have a follow-up question, but I'll let Kalita ask hers first.
Yes, please, Kalita. I'm so sorry.
No, I think that's fine. So Chris, make sure you answer. So now I think I get a better picture. So it's almost like the impact is more individualized. And so maybe my or like, more articulated on an individual basis. But to piggyback on Chris's point, I just wonder if one house got impacted, I just can't imagine that block didn't get some residual effects from that, but I could be wrong, right? And so just being able to, I don't know, also show the increased impact as well. But my other
that
question
would be really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's a project by project basis. You're going to see that more some places rather than in others.
Okay, depending on what the project is.
And the neighborhood, the situation on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other question was going to be probably more on the individual part. Part of equity is like this economic part, right? And we know that home ownership is a driver of that and values. And so have you all looked at or plan to look at or thinking about how to also maybe quantify this data and these impacts in the economic impacts to the homeowners, particularly obviously those who are low income and BIPOC, which it sounds like if not all were, and so that would be great. But so like i.e. home value increases, or because they had this benefit, I don't know, their water bill decreased, there was like another way that they could use money in a different area. They were now like able to get health insurance. Like there's a lot of ways to like quantify economic impact. And then like having something like this done, how maybe that did impact it economically as well as the practical, which is like lower flooding and any other environmental benefits. But that was like loaded, but do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, can I jump in here real quickly, Kalita? I love everything you're saying, and also Chris, data is so essential. Something I'm very aware of is that this sort of surveying and data collection is rare. We don't have a lot of this data in New Orleans. We need more of it. We've done this survey twice. We did it in 2020, 2023. We're seeing this as like an every 3 years sort of thing to understand how our program is and to direct our program. But we definitely need, and we've talked about this a lot with various partners, some of the folks on the call too, and city partners as well. I think we're all acutely aware that we need to be quantifying more of this and looking at it through various sundry lenses. So definitely would love to continue to talk to you about this, because what you just said there, you have like, there's it's like, I'm imagining this, the tool, how we're asking people, and so much of what you're saying there. And also this idea of part of like the funding crux is it's hard to fund if we're saying, look, we're making this person's life better. It's an easier and it's a fair thing to say also, no, yes, this person we are stabilizing their living situation. and improving their quality of life and their safety. But simultaneously, it's a community benefit. And that community benefit is something that we do have to continue to work to quantify. So this idea of talking to the neighbors and of getting a sense of how this has impacted beyond that property is really, really critical in the evaluation we do moving forward. So just wanted to.
I think it would be interesting to look at not just with our own participants, but with, say, the CAP program, which is working, you know, all over Gentilly, to look at the effect of like just green infrastructure as a whole, not so much our program, but like how does this work impact people, neighborhoods? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, I would love
Got
to follow up for
inspiration.
sure. Data, and you're right. We don't, it's like we have it, but like we don't have it.
Right, right.
So yeah, great, thanks.
Yeah. Grace.
I wanted to circle back to the data collection, especially on like gallons per rain event. And it's harder than it sounds to collect that on definitely on a small scale because of how the stormwater basins that, you know, once that goes down the storm drain, what pipe does it really go to and what direction does it go? Sometimes it's surprising what pump station it ends up at and what direction, you know, my catch basin goes to the left and next door that catch basin then goes to a pipe that goes the opposite way. So, but once we get on a bigger scale, and now that we're working on you know, UNO and the city's working on that overall mapping of everybody's stuff, and I'm assuming you guys are a part of it as well. Maybe then that's a conversation of how we can start to quantify that with, you know, flow meters and rain gauges and whatnot, now that they're established and we have enough to make an impact per stormwater basin. So I'd love to continue that conversation because yes, I agree. Cost benefit ratio, just those quantifiable numbers, period, is impressive to have education wise, grant wise, funding wise, all the above. And I wanted to know if you guys are you aware of the EPA grant that's out right now? It's due in April, the Healthy Gulf of Mexico one. It involves a lot of partners. So I've just been talking to a lot of people. It's, you know, all the usual water quality improvement, green infrastructure, stormwater reduction, environmental education, all the things. So if you guys are into that, and I know sometimes it's hard to do fun stuff like this as a whole program when you're on a grant term. So, but I'd love to talk more about that as well offline.
Yeah, would love to hear about that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that one's on our radar or not. But yeah, I'd love
There's
to.
so many all the
put it
time.
there.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know it hasn't been on mine personally, but what's going on in my brain is like, oh, the opportunities for community science. How cool would that be? So, all right, Kalita, did you have another question? Or did you just not do the
No,
hand-raising
yeah,
function?
that's good. That's
Okay.
good. I think Chris
Cool.
does, and I'll look
Just
forward
wanted to check.
I'll
Yes.
email you, Dana, and you know, let's make a love connection and figure out what's more possible.
Sounds excellent.
That would be
Yeah.
amazing. Chris, go ahead.
Okay, last question. But so I was curious because it's called the Front Yard Initiative, but I know certain houses, like it would be really almost unfeasible to remove the concrete in the front yard. But I've seen houses and I've lived in a house that had a huge amount of concrete in the back behind the foundation of the house. And I was wondering, does this program also work for just sort of generic landscaping around the house, or is it really geared for the front yard only? And is that, you know, I know you mentioned like there's not really much eligibility, but is it explicitly for front yard changes, or does it include backyard and kind of landscaping in the back and removing pavement in the back side of things?
Yeah,
Or it
great
might not be
question.
visible to the street.
That's exactly it. That's exactly the crux of the issue. It has to be visible from the street because the idea is that we allow our impact to stretch the farthest if everybody can see this, you know, beautiful installation that you did that like maybe looks a little different, maybe has native plants, that, you know, everyone can see isn't flooding when there's standing water on the rest of the street, because that's what gets other people inspired to install green infrastructure. If it's hidden behind a fence, no go. So that would include if you have a privacy fence, you know, in your front yard where nobody can see the front yard, you would not be eligible. Meanwhile, we do have folks who have done their backyard, mostly people with a corner lot, where everybody can see their backyard. So yeah, it's just about what is going to spark conversations.
And that's just for eligibility for our
Perfect. Thanks for
financial incentive, Chris. So many people, yeah, that whole weird, imagine some guy's brother-in-law just went through town with an awesome salesman and convinced everybody to pave their entire backyard or something to reduce maintenance. Because there's so many fully paved backyards that have been there for a long, long time. And lots of people who sign up for the front yard initiative, they get rid of their paving while they've got the contractor out there to do that as well. But if there's nothing happening in the front yard, we can't provide a financial incentive to them. Happy to provide whatever technical assistance we can, but yeah.
So two things we should mention there about our program in general is, one, all of the technical assistance that we provide for our participants, the people who do get the financial incentive, that's kind of the definition there, is also available to anybody. So, I've been communicating back and forth with a woman who, her situation was in her backyard, so she wasn't eligible, but I said, call me whenever you need something. And she's taken me up on that a couple of times, to say, hey, I've run into this issue, or what do you think of this depth? We've got all sorts of information available on our website that's open to everybody. So there's that. And then number two, the other thing I should mention is that, obviously paving is an enormous reason why we flood. It is certainly not the only reason that we flood. So for FYI Direct, we look at a situation very holistically and do not require pavement removal as part of each of those projects, because you're looking at people who live in flood-prone neighborhoods. They have unhealthy compacted soil. And there's just a bigger situation. There's always a bigger situation than what's going on your property, but for those neighborhoods specifically, because that's such a small part of the story, we don't require pavement removal for FYI Direct. Keith.
Thank you. You have to forgive my
I'm sorry,
ignorance
I can't really
about
hear you.
how much is transferable from England to. Try again in a bit. Hang on. Can you hear me, Emily?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Forgive my ignorance. I'm not sure how much is transferable between the UK and New Orleans, but for someone who removes stormwater for a living, it really frustrates me when you see a new estate built that isn't necessarily sustainable. So how have you used the outcome of your project and study to inform town planning policy? And have you been able to influence kind of positive change for newer developments?
Dana, I'm gonna let you take that one first.
So there aren't a whole lot of newer developments in New Orleans. We're working with a kind of a historic housing stock by and large and retrofitting them. And so we're not out in some of the neighborhoods. You might have some homeowner associations and that sort of thing, but that's not really what we're seeing. Surrounding parishes, yes. Jefferson Parish, for example, is very suburban in its design. I'd be happy to connect you with some of the folks at the parish level working in planning on that, because, for example, Jefferson Parish, who works closely with Orleans Parish on a lot of things, they have a a green infrastructure master plan that they've developed, and that is in part to address some of those issues and to work systematically on stormwater management issues parish-wide, which is county-wide. And then again, like I say, in some of the neighborhoods further out that are more suburban in style. So happy. I'll make a note, and I can connect you with some of those folks who may have more relevant information with regard to new housing developments. I
think in the UK, the law is changing over the next few years to make sure new developments have to incorporate sustainable drainage in their design, but we're not quite there yet. So like you guys, we are targeting towards the
the existing housing stock and retrofitting stuff in. And I just wondered where kind of New Orleans was with the requirements for sustainable drainage on new developments.
We actually, on the commercial side, we do have the comprehensive zoning ordinance from 2018 added a chapter on stormwater management. And there are, and that's something else I can send to you as well. And it's been amended over the time, but that was exactly what it was in saying in new or redevelopments of properties over a certain size, of rain that falls within a 1 hour rain event, something to that effect. So there were mandates put in. And so that really did compel on the commercial side, a lot of development, you're seeing a lot more permeable paving in parking lots and on those sorts of things. So that to meet that demand, not perfect, but it definitely helped spark a lot of that, that permeability on the larger properties. And then FYI was kind of a response to that on the residential side, because there was nothing compelling homeowners to do the same thing. So hence the incentive that we developed in order to encourage homeowners to do the same thing.
Thank you.
Have anybody else right now? Nicole.
Clearly I don't do enough Zoom meetings. I don't know what to push. I wanted to
You're good.
give all right, good. As long as this camera doesn't come on, everything's great. So I wanted to give just a little bit of feedback. So the first one I'm going to say is one of the slides. I don't know if I've been in and out. Sorry, but so if you've already talked about it, but there was a slide on the actual report that talked about how it said, I'm trying to scroll to it really quickly. Have you hired a contractor for regular maintenance of your FYI project? And a great majority of them said no, and I'm not interested. And I just wanted to touch on just the importance of of maintenance on multiple levels. Ubuntu has had the opportunity to work as a subcontractor for CAP, a prime for CAP, and work with every nonprofit organization that's installing green infrastructure. And that it's just been a great journey. We have a lot of projects to look back on, is my point. And it's interesting to me that people don't realize that they need to maintain their projects. And perhaps it's because it's like, well, I don't have the same issue that I was having before, I inquired, maybe the water isn't pooling like it used to. So it's just not registering, but it's like, you guys need maintenance. And it's just, I just hope that they understand. I hope not only homeowners understand, but like organizations need to understand, like there really needs to be money allocated for maintenance, like to roll out multiple millions of dollars for green infrastructure is amazing, but I looked at that slide and I'm just like, I can't even. Of course, and maybe it's because they're maintaining it themselves. Maybe I'm not giving them credit, right? Like maybe they're maintaining it themselves, but far too many are not. And I'm not sure that there is real recognition that it needs to happen, whether you have permeable pavers, bioretention facilities, a trench, all of that. There needs to be a level of maintenance, like ongoing. It's not concrete that you just walk away from forever. And so I seen that, and it's just disappointing because it's so necessary. And every organization that's been amazing about installing green infrastructure, I feel like that's the big hole, is that there's not enough money allocated to maintain it. And then to see, you know, people are like, oh, no, I don't need it either. Like, yes, you do. You need to maintain the work that's been done. So that's one thing. And then the other one that I wanted to say, and I'm trying to make it as on a pot, because I don't want to be like Debbie Downer, but I really want to just make sure that I thank y'all. Ubuntu thanks you and all nonprofits really for the work that you've done in green infrastructure, because going back to your slide or your comment on the drought of 2023, and I think things were kind of like slowing a little bit. I wasn't here. I haven't been here as long as Dana and other people that have like really seen green infrastructure, like from a conversation to grants are here, multiple millions of dollars are rolling in specifically on this. Like, I haven't seen the true like span. I do go back far enough to know that, you know, Greg and I have talked about this a lot. We feel like Ubuntu was created on, not in a true industry, but like on a pilot program. Like, we've created a company not with like a true like industry that's like there's supply and demand, and like, do you know what I mean? Like, no matter what, there's this need. That's like a true industry where it's like bustling a little bit. And of course, things like inflation, and when the world is like falling in around us, every industry is impacted. But green infrastructure is one of those things, like it's not for us, and totally understand if not everybody feels this way. This is just our conversation. It's not quite an industry yet. And so it's personal to us because we created a business, Ubuntu, that is specifically green infrastructure. We don't do anything else. We don't cut yards. We don't, I mean, we do, you know, occasional, it's a very small percentage of our business is like, you know, doing some landscaping or whatnot, but it's like less than 10%. We do like exclusively green infrastructure. And I guess even more transparency, since 2019, 2023 was our year that Ubuntu broke $1 million in green infrastructure. Like, it was like 300,000 to 400,000 a year or something like that. And then when 2023 came, it was like less than half. It's like not even, we didn't break 200,000, which is painful to go from, you know, one thing to the next, but that's business, right? What the observation is, because it is businesses go, you know, up and down, and that's to be expected. But it's like, what industry are you a part of? And can you predict that there will be an increase? What can you predict that it will pick back up? And so all of this to say, in the drought, and, you know, I'm glad you all said it, because we had conversations with other companies, one bigger than ours, that was just like, hey, our phones aren't ringing and it's not raining outside. Like, are you guys feeling this? And we're like, oh my gosh, yes. And we literally have had to pivot as a company. Like, the way we're doing business now is not what we've done in the past, to accommodate the fact that we're smaller now. We're on a skeleton crew. We don't take certain projects anymore, just to deal with the fact of like adjusting to what the true demand is right now, which is not very high. And then the accommodating the difference between that demand and the overhead. Anyway, so all that to say, nonprofits kept things going. And that was really where I wanted to go with all that backstory, is just like, it's not quite an industry yet. There's a massive need. And nonprofits, because there's not people in their houses being like, yes, I need green infrastructures like we want them, like we need them to, and like it should be. There's nonprofits standing in the middle that are like keeping the conversation going, keeping the funds flowing. And it's so necessary, both on the side of being a contractor, that you still have some level of clients, and, you know, of course, for neighborhoods and people that need to understand this as a solution for their home and for their community. So thank you for what you do. Please keep doing your grants. Please keep it going, because I hope 2024 is better for the lack of industry. I'm calling it it's still a test. It's still a pilot program. I hope that it strengthens again. But this 2023 drought was kind of devastating from a business perspective. And you can question, I mean, how you continue and what does that look like. I think it's also great to see through Front Yard Initiative, and then I'm going to stop talking. Front Yard Initiative to see no, that's not Front Yard Initiative, through the green sector directory, that there are so many more contractors that are doing this work, because when we started there weren't as many, doing. So it's an encouraging thing to see more businesses interested in seeing the need. And I hope that we can facilitate more demand somehow. Right now, like I said, the nonprofits are standing in the middle, keeping the conversation going and some of the funds flowing. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Nicole. We love Ubuntu and the work that they do, as well as the other contractors. But two things quickly, and then I think Danielle maybe had a question. I just wanted to respond. Yes, I see when you were saying that about maintenance, I see one of those that as something that we can roll out as part of what we're talking about in education and what people are asking for. They want more education, and that seems like an excellent topic to let people know just like how to do it in a way, but also like the importance of it, like really understand like this is, there is maintenance involved here. So that's one thing. And then what you're saying also about the pilot, I just had to smile to myself because that's exactly how we thought of Front Yard Initiative. It's like, yeah, let's just do this little thing, kind of proof of concept. Somebody bigger and better funded will take this over, the city, or there will be some dollars and it's sort of like we're still holding on to this baby 8 years later saying, hey, yeah, y'all, this can be scaled, so I totally understand what you're saying about the sector. I think a lot of us are feeling like we've proven it, we've demonstrated the value, and there's still a lot of work to be done to consolidate and to create confidence for people working in this sector that this is not like a feast or famine, sort of a thing that you have to worry about these major cycles to the business that you've got. So, but yeah, let's continue talking about that for sure. All of that is very relevant. And Danielle, did you have something?
Real quick though, I want to add on in terms of your comment about being a Debbie Downer, Nicole, your feedback and your advice is always so valuable. Please
Thank
keep
you.
doing it.
Thank you. And there's so much positive. There really is. But yeah, there are challenges. There are definitely challenges.
Hey,
All right,
Nicole, I'm
Danielle.
glad you went first because I'm always the Debbie Downer here in every conversation, I feel like. But I just wanted to give you maybe a little glimmer of hope. So we were having this maintenance conversation when we were doing all these CAP projects. Like we did over 150 of these CAP residences, and we gave them maintenance manuals and talked about maintenance all the time whenever we were doing these projects. But one of the things that we had conversations with Nora about is funding maintenance for these homeowners as part of the project over, a certain, maybe they get 3 years of free funding for maintenance that happens. And so that's something that we've had conversations with them about a lot. And then that kind of started a conversation with the city, and a project that we're working on now is to create a funding manual and like matrix for green infrastructure for the city and like public sector use. And so you'll be able to determine maintenance funding and needs and frequency and like level of skill and expertise and everything for all the green infrastructure that's happening, so that, the city can actually maintain these millions of dollars of green infrastructure that they're building. But that'll be, I think, a public facing tool as well. And so I think that's something that a lot of, I think Dana and Emily could use when you're going and doing these FYI projects in the future, is that maintenance tool, so people can have a realistic idea of what that's going to include and look like for them moving forward. It's coming, it's slowly coming all the time, but we're trying.
Great.
Yes, that's good to know. Thank you for sharing.
Joseph.
Hey, thanks. I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand in the virtual.
Did it the old-fashioned way.
Look, this is amazing. I cannot believe that you've provided only a total of $133,000 in financial incentives, and you've had such an amazing impact. How can we help you scale?
Excellent question, Joe. Excellent
Love that question.
I mean, it really is. I think, and anybody who's worked on the CAP program knows too that it's very scalable. It just gets down to it gets down to money, and it gets down to what Nicole was referring to, is understanding that it's expensive, and it's almost like needing to take it on as like a public works program. Todd at Groundwork New Orleans can't be here this morning, but he said the same thing for like people coming out of the training programs, that in order to put like the sufficient rungs in the ladder for that green ecosystem to kind of grow, and in a kind of a methodical and sustainable way, to have the maximum benefit in terms of well-paying jobs, the environmental benefits, the flood risk reduction, all of that sort of stuff, we really need to take it on as a sort of like a community project rather than this individualized project. And I think that's where, figuring out collectively what that looks like. And I'm excited that the city is working on a stormwater management master plan out of the Office of the ORS, Office of Resilience and Sustainability. So I'm excited to see how these conversations can get built into kind of that master plan for the city. Yeah, we're one part, but yeah, I mean, we need all the parts to be working in concert.
Well, just really quickly, and I don't know all things infrastructure funding, but I can't imagine that there's not funding under the infrastructure bill for water projects. And so, I guess, are you all in connection to Greg's Office of Resiliency and Sustainability, and are we pitching projects under the infrastructure monies and all that good stuff?
Yeah, we're definitely having conversations. Yeah, nothing super concrete, but yeah, we've had conversations with Greg and Megan there, as well as working with partners on some of these grants. Like Grace says, there's a lot of the EPA funding. The funding is there. It really is there, and it's I think it's a matter of us, yeah, like collectively making the case that this is something that we want to see throughout the city. Yeah, but we welcome any advice. We're tiny, we're a small organization, and we're a little afraid of those federal grants. Any guidance or navigational assistance is welcome, for sure.
Federal grants for a small nonprofit are pretty onerous. But we would love to.
Well, that's good. Let's follow up on that too, because I think the idea of the federal grants is it has to come from the city. And I think the onus of that is that the city has more capacity, tomato, in the same realm of that, but in collaboration of like community organizations who are on the ground and talking to people in collaboration with the city and maybe other organizations, like, let's get it done. And so let's kind of like figure that out. And so let's also follow up on that too.
Amazing. I love it. Keith.
I feel like I'm asking all the difficult questions.
Lay it on us.
A build on Joseph's question about scalability. Do you understand how economical and effective the front yard initiative is at managing impermeable area compared to other ways of managing impermeable area?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, in terms of the installations that go in the ground, or in terms of the way that the program is managed?
I guess if you're going to manage stormwater in a catchment, you'll look at slowing it down, attenuating it, or disconnecting it, or taking it out. Broadly, those are the ways to manage stormwater, and we're looking at lots of different ways to do that. And what's economical? What's a cheap way of doing it? What's an effective way of doing it? And I just wondered how paying people to depave their property stacks up against other ways of managing impermeable area, maybe on public land or through other sustainable drainage. Because it seems like you've got something here that's really good, but if you're going to look at it holistically in a kind of large urban area, there's going to be cheap and expensive ways of doing it. And I wondered how this stacks up against other things. If I explain myself well enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can say a couple things, and Emily, if you have anything to add, and anybody else on the call too. I also wanted just to point out that we are past 9:30, but we're happy to stay on. So if you have to drop off, thank you for coming and joining us, but we're happy to stay on and answer any questions that people have. Keith, yeah, this is definitely like when people, and this gets to that $4 million 4 million gallon per year issue as well, which it's like it's all in the context of what does that mean in terms of what we're getting and what our storm system is handling. It's a lot, and it's a drop in the bucket at the same time. It's a lot in terms of on those individual properties, what is happening on their blocks, what is happening in their, but then in terms of what the pumping system is handling on a given rain system, I think it's something like 450 million gallons in, with a 2 hour, 1 inch type rainstorm. I don't quote me on that, but I mean, it's a vastly different scale. So what these individual projects must pair with those larger city projects. And that's why these conversations are so important that we're having with the city as well, so that we're seeing on an individual basis, we're creating impacts, and we're creating the stuff that Emily was talking about and changing attitudes, behaviors, kind of awareness, buy-in, and further investment of individuals into what we need to do, on a broader scale in terms of the kind of involving themselves civically, et cetera, voting and advocating for certain things that are coming forward that push better environmental practices and so forth. But that's not enough for sure. And so like these larger scale things have to happen also, but the one without the other, things that are happening on the large scale, a lot of times the citizens, the residents are not even there. They don't even know what they're looking at. They understand it a lot better if it's happening on their property as well. But we always
the point that would be really good to prove, and by no means dismiss that 4 million gallons. I mean, my imperial to metric conversion isn't that great, but that's like 6,000 tons or something like that. So we work in liters, but it's something like 6,500 tons. And I guess the point that would be worth proving is the money better spent on getting people to depave their driveways and slow down, or give Grace, if that's Grace's job as I understand it, a bigger pump and more carbon to pump the rainwater around in circles. So that to me would be like really valuable research if it's scalable. And if you can do this on quite a small scale and generate those level of results, imagine how big it would be if it had more horsepower and a fire lit underneath it to make it a much bigger project, and whether or not those results would be tangible enough to see impact in the city's pumping and power consumption and etc. And whether or not it comes to a point where with pumping where you get diminishing returns the sheer volume of water that you've got, and it makes more sense to take it out and slow it down rather than just build bigger pumps and store more.
Yeah, that would be interesting research.
And I think one of the things that we were looking at is maybe have a Goldilocks street where we saturate these kind of initiatives in one street, and then we've got a good data set with a flow meter at the end of that street to actually prove that. Because I think that's one of the things with green initiatives. It's very, very difficult. All the kind of the people stuff and the, you know, how people like it. It's very easy to prove, but the actual kind of cold hard flow and flow data is very, very difficult to kind of build a case to do it, which I think you've done a good job of doing here. So well done.
Definitely want to hear about that Goldilocks street. Keep us posted.
Yeah.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah. I think too, here it's a case of the situation that you're working in, because we don't in Louisiana have very good environmental policies, and we have very strong like property ownership laws. And so the depaving on private properties is going to happen is to incentivize people to do it themselves. And so yeah, I think it's, for us at least, and I would assume for you as well, it's just a broad brush that we need to be implementing every option we've got. You know, updating the pumping system, fully funding our drainage system, depaving on every private property, whether it's residential or commercial, all of the above.
Well, it sounds like we're probably closing out. Everyone knows how to reach us. info@urbanconservancy.org gets to both Emily and me. Dana or Emily gets to us individually. We really want to thank y'all for being with us today and hearing. We're going to have this recording available for anybody who couldn't make it. And we also have the report itself is up. You can access it from our website right at the very top of our homepage. There's a little link to the report itself there. Am I forgetting anything, Emily?
I don't think so.
All right.
This is a team effort. So many of the people on this call contribute to this work, and we're so grateful.
Yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.